You're listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Here are your hosts, Fran Chismar and Tom Kinezic.
So we do have to go into the winner.
Yeah.
So the winner of this round of this or that, Tom,
Yep,
crushed me 13-3, and it was really 13-2, and I had one vote on YouTube, and I don't even know if we're counting that.
Oh no, that's good.
No,
we always say you gotta vote in the group.
They said the person said they didn't have.
They didn't have a Facebook,
so I it didn't help me anyway. Yeah. So, but we are now tied overall 3-3. So it's been pretty steady.
Yeah.
Here's the one thing I have learned. I have no idea what our audience wants.
No. Oh yeah, definitely not.
Because I've picked articles which I felt were pandering that didn't go over well. I picked articles that were self-indulgent that went over very well. Mm-hmm. I really have no idea what is going to win on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
I really have no idea. I don't know if you have a formula yet.
No, not at all. At first, when I won the first two, the third one, I really went out for a stretch just to say, oh, maybe they just like me better. And they didn't, because I think you crushed me that week. But it was nice to be back on the winning side again. It's been a few hard weeks for me of losing. So it was nice to be back.
I love that we make it a competition, though.
Yeah.
It keeps it interesting every week. I try extra hard with the articles to make sure, because
there can be only one.
So you get to choose. Would you like to go first, or would you like to go second?
I'm gonna go first.
Okay.
So, and again, this is this or that, where we're going to present our favorite news stories in the native plant space, and you get to vote on who did a better job of presenting their article, because like Fran just said, everything's got to be a competition.
It has to be. It has to be. There can only be one winner.
Yeah. This week, I picked a story. Now I got to remember the name of the paper. It was Lancaster Online. Okay. And it was actually based on a presentation at the Pennsylvania Farm Show that just took place a couple weeks ago. And it was titled, I just got off the page. It was titled, "Does Your Backyard Stream Need Rehab? Here's what to look out for from snails to invasive plants."
Oh, okay.
And so this is actually something that probably helps a lot of people who are listening, if you have some kind of waterway, specifically a stream, but even if you had a creek. Are those the same thing? Or a creek? Depends on where you live. It could be a creek. If you have a river front, if you have anything like that, this is a really good indicator. But a stream in particular, you have the chance to make the biggest impact on. And the article basically said that streams are a mixed blessing. They're really nice, good to have that water flowing through your property. Gives you some opportunities to do some really cool stuff. If you have kids, it's great for them to go in and play in. But at the same time, it can cause some erosion problems. It can cause some flooding problems. So it's not, like I said, it's kind of a mixed blessing.
Yes.
It's not necessarily always a good thing. And sometimes if you don't pay attention to it, it can become a very bad thing.
Yes.
So one of the things they point out is that in healthy ecosystems, rainfall and precipitation infiltration, actually 50% of that water is going to infiltrate into the ground. 40% of that water is going to evaporate, and 10% will actually be runoff. To put this in perspective, go to your local Walmart and see where the water goes, and it's basically all running off because the water can't get into the pavement, or very, very little is absorbed by the pavement, and then it evaporates on. If you have a healthy system where you have multiple leaf layers, a canopy, and could still be a grassland, but you have multiple layers down where the water is hitting a lot of vegetation on the way down. It's slowing that water from hitting the ground. The ground has a capacity of how much water it can take per hour. If the soil is compacted, it's going to take less water than if it's looser and has more pore space. It'll take more water. So healthy soil with a lot of plant life, you're going to get 50% of that rainfall or precipitation is going to be absorbed deep into the ground and replenish your groundwater eventually. That doesn't happen more often than not. Like the roof on your house, it's rolling off into the lawn, adding to the capacity there. Your lawn isn't really doing much. If you have some trees, that helps slow water down. If you have a meadow, that really helps slow water down and really just filters that water so it doesn't pick up as much sediment.
Yeah.
And that's the big problem, is you get the sediment and contaminants, whether it be dog poop is one, oil from washing your car, soaps, those kind of things, fertilizers, pesticides. Those can pollute that water that then goes into your stream. And fertilizers. Well, I don't remember if I mentioned that one. So Pennsylvania has come up with a program, which is called the First Evaluation of Stream Health. Acronym is FISH, which is pretty good for,
yeah,
for stream.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's a survey that studies the water quality, the embeddedness of rocks. So if you have rocks on the bottom, is there a lot of sand and silt that's kind of covering those rocks, or the rocks up next against each other?
Gotcha.
That's an indicator. It studies the macroinvertebrates in the stream. There's a lot of different factors that they look at to kind of say, is this stream healthy, or does it need help? Or does it need to go to rehab? And what they said, if you do need to take your stream to rehab, one of the first ways you can do it is just let it rewild naturally. Just stop mowing, like 10 feet on either side of the stream. If you have the room, just stop mowing there, and the vegetation that's there is going to start to grow up.
Yes.
If you have the right stuff, it's going to be really good, but you potentially have invasives. You potentially have things that you don't want there. Japanese knotweed was one they mentioned in the article.
And that's a hard thing for a lot of people, because when they have water, they want view of it.
Exactly,
they don't want it to not be visible. So that's always a hard thing. But that, again, that could cut out the amount of shade. You know, is the stream wide and fast moving, or is it really deep? And there's a lot of factors in it. So that's a great way to look at that.
But just having that vegetation base in place right around the edge of the stream is going to slow all that runoff coming in the stream, help drop a lot of that sediment, so you're getting clean water going into the stream. And they've shown studies of this where they said just having like a 10-foot buffer around a farm field going by a ditch or a stream cleaned your water 90%.
Wow.
Just, I think it was like a 10-foot buffer. Now, if you were to have a even wider buffer, that percentage is only going up. The narrower your buffer, it's only going down, and it goes down fast. So that was a big part of it. But like I said, you open yourself up to invasives if you just let it regrow. What they really recommended, and this was still on smaller scales, is to just start planting native plants around it. Plant a lot of wildflowers, plant a lot of live stakes is a really cheap and affordable option. If you don't have things like black willow, if they're native to your area, you don't have those things around you to collect your own live stakes. They're pretty easy. I shouldn't say easy to get, but you can find them from some places, from some nurseries. And then the last thing is said that you do need permits over a certain section, like footage of stream front. And I forget what that was, but you did need permits. And they said, before you start anything, just consult your local soil conservation district, because they'll be able to guide you if you need permits or not, if it's something you can do at home. But they really advocated for just letting or planting natives around your stream fronts, because of the impact on water quality. Even if it's only 100 foot of stream, you're not having that impact on the water. That's just going to keep going downstream.
That's a great article.
It's
Tom.
pretty cool.
That was a great article. I feel as though, well, my article is going to be a little controversial because it's been brought up in the Facebook group before, but I don't know if it's considered cheating a little bit, because one of our listeners sent me this article. I had a little help.
My mom gave me an article to
okay,
talk
all right.
about,
So,
but I didn't use it. But she did give me an article.
I'm using it because this topic came up in our Facebook group, and I thought it was clear how we felt about this topic, but maybe it's not. So the name of this article is "The Problem with Honeybees. They're important for agriculture, but they're not so good for the environment." And that was published in Scientific American by Allison McPhee, PhD. And she's a postdoctoral fellow in the Department of Entomology and Plant Pathology at North Carolina State University. So one of the first sentences in the article that really got me was that beekeeping is for people. It's not a conservation practice. And it's true. And honeybees are an exotic insect. They were brought to North America. They weren't native here. So they're something that came here, and they're still gathering the data. I know you've read articles before, not surveys, but studies on honeybees and if it's detrimental. And that's the bee that everyone knows. That's the bee that's beloved, that everyone thinks of honey, but it's not really native to here. And what are they doing to our native population? So they were saying that honeybees are destabilizing natural ecosystems by competing with native bees. And the honeybee industry actually benefits from the decline of native bees. Honey is a big industry in our country. Yeah. So they want the success of this. But the studies are starting to show that even fruit sets from plants nearest to hives have mainly aborted seeds, which is hurting biodiversity. So they do know that they outcompete. And it's not that our bees are bad at pollinating. They're just being greatly outcompeted by honeybees, and it's making it even harder, and those populations are declining. So it was a really good study, and they use studies from all over the globe, nationally and internationally, to back up these thoughts. So, to me, beekeeping isn't really, and that's, Benjamin Vogt talks about you shouldn't garden for yourself. You're part of the garden. You're not, they're not looking pieces for you. So beekeeping's kind of the same thing. You're doing it for yourself. You're not really doing it for everything else. So I'm not a big proponent of honeybees.
Yeah, I'm not either. And I kind of got on that train probably it was around like 2014 or 2015. Yeah. Because I was presented some research that was actually out of Norway. And it was talking about, now European honeybees are native to Europe, but they aren't native in Norway. And they were finding there that they were outcompeting a lot of their native bees. I was like, well, if that's true there, it's got to be true here.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing research come out of the Carvo Bee Lab in University of Minnesota. And now it's becoming more and more researched from all over the place. But they were finding that the honeybees outcompete the native bees, and they're far less efficient at pollinating the natives than native bees are. Yeah. Honeybees are way less efficient pollinators than the native bees.
Yeah.
But there was more of them. They're working in a hive operation versus a lot of the native bees are solitary bees. There's only one that has a nest and lays eggs.
Yeah.
So it's something I've been on as an agriculturalist. I do see their importance. You have these huge almond groves in California. Well, that's native bees aren't going to populate that. They don't have enough habitat for native bees because in between each grove is just bare soil or maybe it's grass.
Yeah.
So you don't have the native bees there. But we've talked to blueberry farmers and cranberry farmers who, the one blueberry farmer in particular, he said, I used to spend all this money on beehives, and I found just by observing all these native pollinators on the plants around like the clethra and all that around the blueberry farm that, I have a lot of these native bees. I think they actually do a better job of pollinating the blueberries than the bees do. And so he just stopped bringing in the bees, and he had better blueberry crops because he had more efficient pollination.
Yeah.
So,
and one of the
very interesting.
One of the interesting things in the article that it makes sense, but I never thought of, that honeybees are very efficient at pollinating invasive plants.
Yeah.
They're exotic insects. They're familiar with these exotic plants. So things like, one of the things they're great at pollinating is Japanese knotweed.
Yeah.
And we just talked about that in the last episode with Emil DeVito of NJCF about that's the one thing we need to get under control in our forests. And that would open up so much more room for conservation or restoration if we could take care of that plant. So honeybees are actually helping that plant thrive, which I thought, I'm like, that makes sense. I don't know why I never connected those two things, but that makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. It's amazing how I said it in the two buzzes ago, how little we actually know, and that whole fallacy of knowledge and what we think we're doing is good. And like, I really badly wanted to talk about the cocaine hippos in Colombia but I don't think the research is there yet. And you guys all probably have cocaine hippo fatigue by now because it's a little bit older of a story. But they were finding down in Colombia how there used to be these megafauna that are now extinct, and that would browse and help clean up rivers and do all that. And the they're finding that the hippos are actually performing a lot of these ecosystem services that have been missing since a lot of these other animals went extinct.
Yeah.
And in addition, they were reducing fish poachers.
Wow.
Because they didn't want to go down the river with the hippos in there. Well, that's a pretty cool story that kind of ties into what we're talking about.
Exactly.
But we don't know because it's a non-native species to there. We don't know what the actual ramifications will be.
No. So I think that's two great stories.
Oh, yeah.
We have does your backyard stream need rehab? And we have the problem with honeybees. We'll post this up in the Facebook group where you can vote for either article. And I think what do you think? Who do you think is going to win this week?
I don't know. Mine is more down home, something you can do to help.
Yeah.
Yours is more, I don't want to say philosophical, but scientific.
Yeah. And not
That's for
everyone's
sure.
going to agree with mine.
Yeah.
Not, you know.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people who, and I've tried to mention before, I'm not necessarily an anti-honeybee person. I think they're fascinating. I'm probably still pretty similar in beliefs to what Sam Droege said. I think they're fascinating. I think they have a lot of value. It's just not to native plants.
Yes.
It's they are a form of cattle. They're good for agriculture, but keep them out of the meadows.
Yeah. All right. So there you go.
And of course, the choice is yours.
Thank you for listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Remember to like, share, follow, and comment.